Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the show. This episode is brought to you by The Wellness Paradigm, a holistic health coaching company shifting the way that women understand and heal their bodies. Through bioenergetic testing, functional lab testing, and functional nutrition, we uncover what traditional approaches often overlook so you can stop guessing, start healing, and finally feel like yourself again. No more one size fits all protocols, just real answers, deep rooted healing, and the clarity and confidence you deserve to feel incredible. It's time to shift the paradigm of women's health. Now, on to our show. And good afternoon, Hannah.
Hello, it's good to be here.
Glad to have you here and just really excited to dive into this conversation a lot more because Hannah has, well, gosh, just such a wealth of knowledge, but she is a financial educator, speaker, and the co-owner of the Money Multiplier. And she helps teach women, well, people, but particularly women, how to take control of their money and become their own banker. And I think you use a system called the infinite banking concept that you're gonna
hmm
tell us all about.
hmm
But Hannah, first of all, welcome to the show.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you. And good morning, good evening, wherever y'all are at in the world. Hopefully,
Hello.
y'all are having a good day.
Um, Tell us more about yourself. Tell us more about how you got into, finances. I know, especially being a young woman, have had a lot of success. Tell us a little bit more about this journey.
Yeah. So actually, as of this recording, so I'm really 26 years old. And I started this whole journey back when I was 18. Now, when I was 18, I was actually living in the Kansas City area. So that's where I was growing up at. I graduated high school from Olathe South in Olathe, Kansas. So for all my Kansas City folks out there. But then I moved over to Daytona Beach, Florida when I was 19. So I moved down here in the year of 2018. But back when I was living in Kansas City, okay, I had some issues growing up, all right? And there was, you know, what was really interesting is just to see my parents build up these other businesses. And by doing so, honestly, they weren't around to raise us kids because they were busy. They were building the chiropractic office. Mom had her billing office that she was doing for all the chiro clinics and other docs in the area. And then they got into teaching what we teach now is the infinite banking concept. So mom and dad were on the road a lot. It was myself and my younger brother growing up in Kansas City. And we actually lived with our grandparents for some time and even had some nannies coming in helping out during our high school years. But I think going through all of that, I think I had just a lot of resentment towards my parents. So I'm like, Mom, Dad, why aren't you guys here at my volleyball games? Why aren't you coming to these parent teacher conferences or choir shows, whatever it is, right? And I think I had a lot of resentment because of that. And so they kind of led me down this road of getting into even just drug addiction, sneaking out, having boyfriends who were like twice my age, So I was just really going down the negative path. But luckily, I really changed my life around. I flipped it the 180 just because of some things that happened within my life. And I always remember my mom telling us this because when I would be walking out the door going to school, I'd have one foot out the door and she would holler at me, Hannah, make good choices. And then I'd have to holler back because the choices I make today will affect my future. And yeah, I didn't understand that being an impressionable young teenager back at the time. But luckily, I dug myself out, and we can get into that story if you really want. But coming to mom and dad, going through this life experience, thinking that I know everything there is to know on this whole big wide world and this planet at being 16 years old, coming back to mom and dad with like my tail in between my legs, saying, hey, I don't know everything there is to know. I don't know what I want to do with my life. I need some help and some guidance here. So really that led me down this whole path of finding my entrepreneurial spirit. I was actually a waitress at Cracker Barrel for a long, long time. And what I loved about that is Cracker Barrel didn't have any tip sharings when I was waitressing there. I don't know if that's still true to this day, but I really found my work ethic because I would dictate how much I would make in a night based on how well I took care of the guests, how quickly I wanted to flip the tables. But then I was sitting there 2 years into this Cracker Barrel journey, and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to be a career waitress all my life. And actually, what I really would love to do is I would love to even open up my own boutique. And I really wanted to get into this whole fashion design world. And my grandfather, he was actually putting money away for myself and my brother and my cousins to go to schools and find a good college. And that's where I learned. I was looking at this Savannah College of Art and Design school in Savannah, Georgia. My 529 plan would not fund for that college tuition. So that's when I had this big epiphany moment. And I'm like, well, crap. If I want to go do this, I'm going to have to take out all of this student loan debt. Once I leave this 4 year university, then I'm going to go find myself what, like a 45, 50 year job? I'm kind of working backwards in that sense. So that's when I came to Pops and I was like, you know what, Dad? I don't know what I really want to do quite yet. And that's when Dad says, well, hey, I need help in my business. And if you're not going to help me, I'll go find someone else to help me. And I was like, okay, Dad, well, what do you want me to do? And that's when I got into this whole journey of helping people implement their own infinite banking systems. It's starting to become their own banker. And I love where I started my whole journey at 18 is I really understand this business from the ground up because essentially Dad started me off as like, let's maybe call it the janitor status. And then from there, I climbed my way up to then being Dad's assistant. Now I'm up to the point where I travel around the country, speak and teach on this concept. I do this just within my own life, but that's kind of the journey of how I progressed and really found myself as being a wealth educator, just going through these real life experiences that I needed to overcome myself.
Mm, I think that's how a lot of people too. I mean, some of the most successful people have had this kind of journey, starting from the ground up, right?
Yep.
Everybody hears the success and wants to start there, but there's layers to this.
And I literally in my studio here, it's posted up on my wall. It says, the journey is the destination. And I know that's so cliche, right? We hear that all the time, but it literally is. You have to enjoy the journey. There's no just one dead input of the destination. I mean, yeah, we have goals and that we're trying to strive to get there, but at the same time, that's what really makes up this life is all of the experiences, the stories you get to tell to get you as you're traveling along to that destination.
So, so true. And I think that's particularly the case. I mean, with finance, it's like people hear about, people being millionaires and having all this money. They don't understand the journey it took to get there. Now, I'm going to kind of backtrack for a second. You teach on this infinite banking system, becoming your own banker
Mhm.
concept. What does that actually mean for somebody that's never heard of this?
Yeah. Okay. No, good question. Here's where I would start first. There is a book. It's called Becoming Your Own Banker, and it's by a man named R. Nelson Nash. Okay, so this black book, I would definitely recommend everybody add it to their wealth building library because everything that I teach comes from that book. Nelson Nash was actually my father's mentor, and unfortunately, Nelson passed in March of 2019. He's no longer with us, but his family's carrying on his legacy. But really, what this is all talking about is you controlling the banking function in your life. Because here's what Nelson would always teach us. He says, guys, you want to be in two businesses in your life. The first business is the one that you're passionate about. It gets you up out of bed every single day, supports the family, supports the livelihood. But then the second business is the banking business, the business that finances everything throughout your life. And that's really what I'm here teaching is that banking business because we don't even realize it. We are in the shackles to conventional banks and the government just based on our society and what we've been doing with our money up to this point within our lives. Because kind of think about it, right? We need to make money to live on this God given earth we call America. Okay? We just got to do it. That's how I pay my bills, put food on my table, blah, blah, blah. But when I make that money, what are my options? Where do I go store the money at? Well, I could leave it down at the local bank because, well, that's just where they keep the money at. And then what the bankers do is they use our money and they make a good living using our money. So I could leave it at the bank, or, I could leave it underneath my mattress or dig a hole in the backyard. I could keep it there, but I don't really want to do that because then I'm subject to theft or fire or flooding down here in Florida, or the hidden tax called inflation. Or my third option is I could go leave it with the financial advisor who thinks they can manage my money better than I can. And that's like all of the options that we're given. So instead of me going that traditional conformed route, honestly, what I personally do is I keep my money held within my whole life policies. So it's whole life insurance, but it's not the whole life insurance that's just conventionally taught about. Okay, hey, get this life insurance policy. It's just there for the death benefit purposes. No, no, no. I mean, if this whole life policy is designed properly, meaning if it's designed to have high immediate cash value, you can use this whole life policy as your own private banking institution. And so that's just what I teach is where I keep my money at, why I keep it there, how we use the cash values from our policy to finance and buy the things in life. And that's really what the infinite banking concept is all about, is having the freedom and the control over your own money.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting concept, right? I think there's a lot of stigma around life insurance
Mhm.
and, different kinds. I think people aren't really also aware of it. Um, if somebody was really have never maybe heard of it before, you
Yeah.
know, where would you suggest they learn a little bit more about this specific concept?
Yeah. So definitely becoming your own banker book if you're a reader. Also, if you're into like audiobooks and you got a little ADD like myself, it does come with 2 hours of audio, okay? But I would even shoot over if you go to, like, I have my podcast show, the Money Multiplier podcast, or even on our website, themoneymultiplier.com. There's a 90-minute presentation that really just breaks it down into the most simplistic form. Because I always say, in any line of business, right? If you're like an educator and you get done talking with somebody and they can't reciprocate that information to like a fifth grade level, we're not doing our jobs properly, right? So that presentation really breaks it down just to the fundamentals of what is infinite banking, why am I doing it, how are we conducting this and using these policies. I would start there as well as a good foundation to understand and dive deeper into this whole world of becoming our own bankers.
Now, I think particularly women, I mean, people in general, but I find so many women are stuck in lack, scarcity,
Uh-huh.
maybe debt, right? And the thought of investing more is very scary, right? Um, how would you help reframe more of like the money mindset for people that are very nervous to go anything besides maybe the very traditional, very safe, very minimal amount?
No, it is. No, and actually, this is beautiful because I was thinking about this and I did this whole conversation on one of my shows about the cost of doing nothing.
Mm.
Really think about that. If you don't take the risk to start this journey that you want to do, whether it's for your personal life, your spiritual life, your business life, what's the cost of truly doing nothing? I mean, to me, just in practical sense, it's me saying that I don't trust myself, my intuition enough to carry me down this new journey or this path. And now I'm just going to sit here and coast through my life. And that's not great because then you're going to wake up one day being 65 years old, climbing this corporate ladder, look back and think, what in the heck did I do all of these years, right? I know I don't want to wake up one day thinking like that. So I just have this big passion that time is the only resource resource that we can't get back. And so I can always buy more things, make more money, right? But it's my time freedom that I'm really chasing after. So to me, if we just break it down specifically for money, y'all, money is nothing more than just a means of exchange. That's all that money is. All we do with the money is we exchange it for the goods, the products, the services that we're buying in life. Money for food, food for my money, money for car, car for money, money for house, house for money, right? I mean, that's all that money is. So we as people and women, we do things with money that we would never do with things that money buys. So, like, to put it into perspective, if I were to go put my money, let's say, into like a 401k and I'm 40 years old and I have to wait until I'm age 59 and a half just to touch that money to avoid the 10% penalty, think about if you were to buy a car at age 40 and then wait until age 59 and a half to get into the car and start driving it. That would be stupid and ridiculous, would it not? So we just have to change our mindsets that money is nothing more than just a means of exchange. And I can't act out of this hoarding mentality, this scarcity mentality, or that's all that you're going to have. You're just going to act scared and not be confident with some of these decisions that you are making. And you will. You're going to make mistakes, okay? I remember doing my first ever podcast episode. Oh my gosh, I hate going back and listening to them. I cringe at myself. But you got to start somewhere. And as you learn, you evolve, you make these pivots and these shifts. That's all you can really ask for.
That's so true. So true. You mentioned something about, money. When you're talking, I'm hearing a lot of similarities to things we talk about on the podcast with health in general, right? It's like you have to just start. You can't just keep like, what's the cost of not starting, you know?
Mhm.
And I'm curious, money is so tightly weaved into well-being, right? Like, is there a story that either you've personally experienced or somebody else where it's like somebody didn't just get that financial freedom, they also saw visible changes in their health, their stress, the relationships is a big
Oh,
one.
for sure. For sure. I mean, I can tell you personally, I mean, my parents, coming from a family where my dad is really new money, he did not have a lot growing up as a kid. I mean, he would have as Christmas presents like paper airplanes. That's what grandma would give him because they just couldn't afford for it. They would go across the street to the Long John Silvers and get hush puppies every night because that's all they could afford for dinner. So having my parental side or my dad coming from there, and then my mama coming from the side of almost old money, where she came from farmers in Illinois, right? And her grandpa had a printing press, and he would print all of the mass bulletins for the Catholic Church in town. So seeing those two backgrounds come together, that's been really interesting. And there have been fights. I mean, sorry, mom and dad, put y'all on blast like that, but they would have conflicts because they had different mindsets and habits, how they were raised with the money. And that's why I think mom and dad did such a good job with us kids, not making money such a taboo subject within the family. We'd sit down every Sunday, we'd look over the family financials. What's the income? What's the cash flow? What's the expenses? Are there things that we need to prep for? Do we have goals? Do we want to go buy a new jet ski for the lake house? We'd come together and we'd have those open conversations with it. And specifically, dad, he was a chiropractor for a long, long time. That was my first ever job. When I was 14 years old, I was a CA, the front desk girl at one of his clinics. And then I got fired. Another story for another time. But that's what we would always notice as well, is because there's statistics out there that the number one cause of death in America is heart disease. The number one cause of heart disease is stress, and the number one cause of stress is money and financial problems. So if you can just hit the root of what's truly going on, massage it, tend to it there, it's just going to overflow into into the other areas of your life as well. So I would say just get comfortable with the money conversations. Don't be nervous to look at your bank account, your credit card statements, because you got to get true. You got to get honest with it, with yourself. Because if you don't, I mean, who are you just looking out anyways? It's you anyways.
Yeah, true. I find so many people, it's a taboo subject, which is why I love bringing people on this podcast too. Is like it is so important to understand and to bring this conversation up and have different, methodologies, different, viewpoints on this because, women, so many women I know and work with, it's like they feel they don't have control of their money. They don't know it. They leave it in the hands of the man because that's what they've been taught. They don't even want to talk about it. And it's so empowering, not to mention beneficial, when you can change that conversation, right?
Yes, yes. And I even have one client, get this. I mean, it was her and her husband. Her husband passed. Her husband did all of the money things, for lack of better words, within the family. And so when he passed, she was like, I just don't know what to do. I don't know who to call. I don't know what's coming from what account. And so, specifically, my spouses too, we got to get it on the same page. It's very, very important just for the long haul of the relationship, for the respect for one another, and then also just building as we evolve with our spouses within our life too.
Yeah, definitely. I'd be curious on what are some of the biggest misconceptions you kind of face when talking about maybe life insurance in general or just wealth building in general that you run into.
Yeah. So there's a whole different ways I could go, but I would say the biggest one, especially if you do start going down this whole rabbit hole of the infinite banking concept, is the big gurus that are out there, the Dave Ramseys, the Susie Ormans of the world, who are big buy term and invest the difference people, right? I think we've all heard that saying before, but. And I get it, okay? Because my dad, he was a Dave Ramsey's baby step follower, right? I mean, it took him 2 years to start this journey because he was deep into Dave Ramsey's, thinking like in that sense, not doing his own homework. But again, Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, they have a place for teaching the common people, teaching the masses. But the biggest thing that I just see in my biggest critique is, okay, Dave, you're helping me with my budget. You're helping me live within my means. But it's almost like if I'm like a hurt bird, okay? So if I'm just like a hurt bird and my wings a little hurt and I come to Dave and he's helping me, he's getting me all prepped up, ready to fly again. And then I'm ready to fly and go on more adventures. It's like he wants to keep me within this cage, right? And it's just a limited mindset. So you'll come across a lot of different philosophies, especially when it comes to your money. I mean, being 26 years old, being in this industry since I was 18, I mean, I see it. It's a dog eat dog world out here in the money world, right? People have all of their different opinions and advice that they want to give you. So to me, I always just come back to think for yourself and question. It's almost like politics. I look at both sides of the spectrum. What are these people saying? What are these people saying? And then I'm going to form my own opinion from hearing both sides of the coin. I think everybody should do that within their money life as well. I also think that you should stop taking advice from your broke brother-in-law. Okay, there's people that you take advice from and you see the life that they're living and you're like, why am I taking advice from this person? I don't want to live that life. So that's another thing that I really do is I only take advice from people that I see living a lifestyle that I want to live. And I'm like, okay, what are you doing over there? What are your failures? What have you learned up to this point? And those are the people that I'm truly listening and taking the actionable advice and steps from.
I see this a lot in clients' health journeys, let me tell you.
Hmm.
You are a young woman, leading in a male-dominated industry. I'd be curious what sort of maybe barriers you've faced and what sort of things you've had to really overcome or learn that you can pass on to other women to help kind of, succeed in this.
Yes. And to even backtrack to what I was thinking about is A lot of people think they have to have a whole crap load of money to get started on all these different adventures, whether it is real estate investing or starting a business or buying your first house, buying your first boat, whatever it is. There's so many different creative ways that you can really start these journeys without having to have a crap load of capital to inject into this project. So I would just encourage people just to think outside the box. And for me being a woman, I'll tell you this, Shannon, I literally just started wearing dresses again on stage. For the longest time, I would only wear pants because I had this perception that these men would take me more seriously if I'm up there in pants instead of a skirt or a dress. But honestly, I've been taking back that power and more of my feminine side because here's a danger to it. I lost my feminine side there for a while, and I'm very blessed to get back into my femininity and going in that whole direction because it is important as us women. That is a very big balancing act that we have with the men out here is that we're nurturers, we're carers, we're empathetic, we're listeners, right? But I feel that sometimes. Literally just a few weeks ago, there was a gentleman who called me and he was talking to me about his client that wanted to start infinite banking. And he was like, I have no idea what infinite banking is, but I found you online and I've been watching your stuff. Could you maybe help me and my client? And I said, sure. And so we got into the conversation. We were chit-chatting there for about 45 minutes. And then he goes, great. Now, my client is age 58, and I think it would be a better choice if we had your father sit down with this individual and talk to him instead of you. And you know what I said? And part of my French, I said, why? Is it because he has a penis? I straight up asked him that question. And he goes, no, no, no. I just think that they would vibe. They're in the same age demographic. I get where he was coming from to some extent, but actually, I pushed back. I really stood within my grounds and I said, yeah, absolutely. We can see if Brent's got a time for y'all to connect. But just so you know, I mean, I've been doing this since I was 18. I became a millionaire by the time I was 24. I got 8 of my own policies that I actively use. I have a big real estate portfolio. I've spoken on the NASDAQ stage, the Boston Harvard Club, interviewing astronauts, going on 12 TV appearances. But yeah, let's get with Brent and y'all can sit down and have a conversation. So, no, I'm telling you, when you stick it to them and really fight that, almost get into your man, or what's it called? Like the masculine energy there with them, you kind of vibe with them a little bit better is what I say too. So that's what I've always done is I just stood my ground and I just projected myself. I took up space, and by doing so, these men are like, "Oh no, Hannah could come and totally sit at the table with us and talk."
We could dive into this so much more. But yes, I mean, I was in a very, very male-dominated industry, managing a gym for a long time too, and it's funny. It's like we're not it's a very delicate balance between balancing this masculine and this feminine,
Yeah.
being a successful woman in business, right?
Yes.
Story for another time. A lot of podcasts on this topic. Go listen to them. But I love hearing that too, because it is important, right? Um, and also realizing that so many other people are just their own projections, but it is funny to be like, sure, we can do this, but listen how successful I've been. You mentioned something about women though, and I'm feeling, or just general, like, that you have to have a ton of money to actually get started. I think that's probably a huge misconception. So I'd be curious, like, how do you actually help people figure out how much to fund this? Like when especially when people feel like they just don't have enough, period, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And two, we cannot look at the policies like it's an investment. I don't teach you how to go make your money, how to go invest your money. I mean, yeah, if you want to have those buddy conversations, I can turn you on to what I'm doing over here, what's working out for me. But at the end of the day, what it really is where am I storing my money at? And number one, excluding the policies out of it, I get a lot of people who call my line and they think infinite banking is going to solve all of their problems. And they're the type of family, let's say they're bringing in 10,000 a month, but their expenses are 15,000 a month. No, infinite banking is not going to solve all your problems. You got a cash flow problem, a spending problem, something else is going on here. So my first advice is get clear. Okay, I know sometimes, and I know some of my people, you guys think this way. You think if there's checks still left on the counter, that there's still money in the bank. You need to look over your cash flow on a monthly basis at least. What I do is I actually have the first Wednesday of the month blocked out of my calendar from 9 to 12. And that's when I get into my previous month. I look over my income. How much did I bring in? I look over my expenses. What did I spend more money someplace rather than the other place? Whatever it is, right? And I really get clear on what's happening from the cash flow standpoint on my personal and my business life. But more importantly, what I tap into is how much am I keeping at the end of the month? Because it doesn't matter how much you make, it only matters how much you keep. And those keeping dollars, that's the money I start to flow through my policy. And that's the ongoing premium deposits that I'm making into it. And even if you want to bring it down like a step lower, how dad taught it to us kids is he says, guys, these policies are nothing more than just your glorified savings vehicle. So the money that you're saving each month, that's the dollars that you should start floating towards your policy. And in my waitress days, I was saving up $100 a week. And so dad was like, all right, if you're saving up 100 a week, that's 400 a month. That's where you're going to start your first policy, $400 a month. And back at that time, I didn't know everything that I know now. And I'm like, okay, dad, I'm going to put 400 a month in this stupid life insurance policy. Sure, right? But now that I'm older and I get this stuff, I'm like, well, crap, I wish I would have done a whole lot more back then when I first started.
I think that's in general. I always hear these jokes. It's like, my only mistake is that in 2008, I couldn't invest when I was in second grade to,
Straight up.
put into all this real estate. You know, it's,
Yes.
but it's cool that, growing, evolving, learning, and, teaching others kind of not mistakes because they're never mistakes, but, things that you wish you would have learned years ago, save people time and
Or
energy.
what I always say, there's no mistakes, just expensive lessons.
Yeah.
Shannon, I gotta tell you this, girl. One time, not too long ago, it was about 2 weeks ago, I was on the road. I was teaching in a town called Gary, Indiana, right outside Chicago. And I don't know what it was. I was bouncing around a lot. I had some TV stuff in Pittsburgh. Then I had to go to Gary. Then I had to go to St. Louis. So I think my mind was just on the road. I got myself a rental car. Yo girl did not fill up her gas tank before dropping it back off. I'm like, crap. So I pull up and I look at the guy and I try to like, and see, this is the perks of being our and tapping into our feminine side, right? I like curl my little eyes, I flash them a little bit, and I'm like, sir, I'm so sorry, but I don't know what happened. I just totally forgot I didn't fill it up. How much are you guys gonna charge me? He says $10 a gallon. I said, oof. And that's what I told him. I said, all right, I understand. There's no mistakes. There's just expensive lessons. And I know that I'm not going to forget this moment and I'll never forget it ever again when I get a rental car. But there's more to that story there where I didn't have to pay that. But seriously, that's what it is. We can't look at everything just being half empty. I got to look at the positives and the bright sides of every situation that I'm in because that's just what's going to carry me into growing. That's all it is. We're just growing. We don't want to hit the arrival syndrome is what I call it. I mean, a lot of people out there, they think again that they know everything there is to know on this beautiful planet. And you might as well, in my opinion, just rot and die because you hit the arrival syndrome.
True. Man, I need to make sure next time I rent a car too, I don't make that same mistake. Thank $10 a gallon. Whew.
I know.
Well, this is all really, fascinating. And I think just kind of tying it up, if you could give one or two pieces of advice for somebody that's really just getting started in this, wanting to learn more, I know we have resources to watch and things like that, but, you know, just what's one thing they can do today to kind of get them on the right path
Yeah.
financially?
One thing, okay, here's a tool I love to use. Personal side, there's this app, maybe y'all have heard it. It's called Rocket Money. I pay Rocket Money $5 a month. I have all of my credit cards, my bank statements hooked up to it, and I just love checking and tracking what's going on in my monetary life week after week. So you can definitely start there to get clarity on what's happening in your financial life. And for my business owners, y'all, if you guys have been slacking, haven't got yourself a bookkeeper yet, do it. Okay. Best money I ever spend every single month. Okay. So I like the bookkeeper for my business side, my business books, but that would be the first actionable step is just get clarity on what's going on in your financial life. I have a tool that y'all can reach out to me for. I call it my net worth statement that I track and I update every month. That's what I'm talking about when I look over my financials monthly is I update my net worth statement there. But from there, that's when I would dive into think about what are you doing with that money? Where are you storing it? Are you storing it in a bank account with your financial advisor, in a 401k, IRA, locking up the money? Where are you keeping this money at and what could you be doing with it? Because I'm telling y'all right now, there's a lot of you who are putting dollars into these qualified plans where you probably need the money today. Y'all are probably wanting to start up businesses, go on vacations. You got tax bills you got to pay, debts to pay, but yet you're going and you're funding into this hypothetical account that you hope that money's going to be there later on down the road. I want guarantees. I want guarantees and certainties when it comes to my money, not me just cross my fingers, leaving it up to the market and the government thinking, okay, yep, they will take care of me when the time comes. Seriously, how well has that been working out for some people up to this point in their lives? So hopefully that's helpful. That's kind of how I would get into deeper about what you're doing in your financial life.
Yeah, no, I like that. Well, if people wanted to connect more with what you specifically do, where can they reach out, contact, learn more?
Yeah. So on all social media platforms, I'm Hannah Kesler. Hannah spelled the same ways forwards and backwards, Kessler with one S. Or you can
Ah,
also even just go to my website too, hannahkessler.com. You can find all my adventures on there.
Didn't think about that, Hannah, forward and backwards.
A polydrome, baby. That's what they call them.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I definitely will link your websites below, social media as well. That way you guys can connect if you want to learn a little bit more about what her and, the company does. And definitely, I know there's some people that would find this really fascinating, potentially life-changing. So, but I appreciate you being here. Thank you, Hannah. And listeners, of course, thank you so much for being here. Definitely share this with somebody that you might think this would benefit from. And otherwise, we'll catch you guys on the next show. Bye, Anna.
Bye, y'all.